Right, good morning, everyone. Greetings from Penang, Malaysia. Thank you, everyone, for joining this session this morning. Thank you to Cisco for having me, for inviting me to join the session this morning. So, let me continue talking about the so-called best practices. But I don't put the word best practices on my slide, as you can see, because I'm not sure whether those are considered best, but I just say good practices. Hopefully I can share with you from the practitioner's point of view, not from an expert. I'm not an expert by any measure. From the practitioner's point of view, doing being involved or conducting my courses as part of blended learning online for the past 20 plus over years. Okay. All the slides that you see in this presentation, I'll give you the link at the end of this presentation to download the slide, as well as an appreciation for joining the session this morning. I'm giving you two gifts here. The first one is my online course. The title is Transforming Your Class into an Online Course. This is actually quite a comprehensive online course. So I'll give you the link also to access this course at the end of this presentation. And another one, there's so much actually to learn about the good practices of designing, planning, designing, and conducting online course. Again, I'm not an expert, but I have this online course called Engaging Online Learners. This I consider as a very comprehensive course as well, and this is actually available free on our USM MOOC, Massive Open Online Courses platform. And I'm giving also the link at the end of this presentation. So if you don't get much from the presentation this morning, these two courses hopefully will help you to learn more to moving forward when we do more online learning, online teaching next few weeks. First, let me ask you, what does it take to develop good online course? I think most of us have been teaching for some time, face-to-face setting, and we do it every day, every week, every semester. It become natural. We just go to the classroom without much, you can just put on the slide and start your class. But when we move or transition from face-to-face to online, it's not kind of straightforward. So there are a lot of things actually, and some people in the online, experts in online learning, there are two schools of thoughts on what is good online course or good online learning looks like. And one, as you can see on the screen here, Clint, let alone be here, he said, I don't think what is happening right now can be or should be considered online learning or distance education. Because to him, online learning is well planned, deliberate, and thoughtful in the sense that online courses often take months or even years to develop, not days or weeks. Well, I kind of agree with this view because from my experience, to really have one comprehensive, well-designed online course using the proper instructional design, strategies, philosophy, principles, it's not that easy. It will take some time. It's very time consuming initially. And for those who are not familiar with learning, with online learning, the learning curve can be quite steep. But as in anything at the beginning, there's always a learning curve and there's always challenges at the beginning. But another view on what is online course is by another well-known prominent name in e-learning, especially Stephen Downes here. He said online learning should be fast, fun, crazy, unplanned, and inspirational. It should be provided by people who are more like DJs than television producers. It should move and swing, be ad hoc and on the fly. So that's the opposite end of the view of what online course should be like or should looks like. Well, I think we can adopt, somewhere in the middle. But mostly in the last few weeks, when we start doing full online teaching because of the MCO or the PKP, basically what most people are doing now is what we call or describe as emergency remote teaching or ERT, which simply means abrupt migration to online learning, a temporary shift of instructional delivery to an alternate delivery mode due to crisis circumstances. So if we have been teaching the face-to-face class, and when we do full online class without much preparation, and we have a very short time to do that, and we still have to carry on with our class, then we have to make do with whatever we can, as long as the class can, carry on. And therefore, we might not, or we might overlook a lot of things, or we might skip a lot of things in terms of the elements of good online course or good online, good e-learning course, because we just want to get it done. We want to carry on with the teaching. But if after the COVID-19, we can continue on the initiative to design our online course in a much better way, in a more comprehensive and following the instructional design principles. I think we should do that. We should, ride on the momentum and don't stop. So for the rest of my presentation, I'm assuming now we want to develop our online course in the best possible way. So what are some of the things that we must do when we deliver the course, or when we design the course and deliver it? And I also assume that we know our students. We know there are some information about them. Who are they? Where are they? Whether they have good access to internet connection, whether they are on the high bandwidth or low bandwidth, what kind of devices they have, and so on. We need to have that information. So I'm assuming all the students have some form of connection to the internet. Okay. Needless to say, we have, in order to have a good online course or e-learning course, there need to be a lot of planning. So systematic and meticulous planning. That's why not many people would want to do online course, online teaching, because of the time constraint. So, but this is not an option. I think we need to find the time so that we can systematically and meticulously plan the online course to the highest possible quality, using the proper instructional design approach and the elements of good online course. So I want to show some example or sample from my own. You can use any platform that you have. It could be your institutional platform. In USM, we use open source Moodle. We call it eLearn. So that's a good point to start. But if you are using other platform like Open Learning, Schoology, Edmodo, even Google Site, so whatever the platform you use, regardless, how do you design what should be the course? So this is where the systematic, meticulous design, as you can see here, again, I'm using Schoology here. So you can see the title of the course here. I have folders. So inside the folder here, there are sometimes subfolders, sometimes the file. So of course, the first thing that the students want to see, and we want to provide the students with all the information required for the course. And we have, I have also a weekly lesson plan for the 14 weeks of the semester. very detailed, week by week, lesson by lesson. I have also topics, the content divided by topics. Then I have some activities, pre-lesson activity, where we can do a flip classroom approach, not only in face-to-face, but even online. We can do a flip classroom, so that the students would have access to this pre-lesson activity that they have to do before the actual lesson. Then I have all the learning resources needed for them. So they don't have to ask, because they just come here and they will have access to all the learning resources, selected, filtered learning resources. We don't give everything and make the students overwhelmed. Even the assignment, the test quizzes, and the rubrics, everything are given here. So this is what requires planning. What goes into this, what goes into that, how much, and the instruction has to be very clear. So that the first so-called tips when we want to embark on good online teaching online, the preparation and the meticulous plan need to be in place. Now, when it comes to the designing, when we talk about instructional design here, of course, I'm not an instructional designer, but I want to pretend or learn to be a learning designer. Okay, and there are many so-called instructional design models that you can find, but the one that we want when we design our online course is the instructional model for the online course. Okay, so one of the, I guess, quite popular model is this one, Willie Salmon's 5-stage model here. So as you can see in this model, from the first to the fifth here, you can see first we have to consider about the access and motivation. So that's why we need to know our students in terms of their ability to access, in terms of the internet, in terms of the device, and the motivation. Motivation is actually a very, very critical aspect. How do we motivate students? How do we empower students? Because it's a different setting in an online environment. Then the element of online socialization, because learning by its nature happens more effectively in the social environment. Learning is by its nature is social. You need to have people. You have to have a peer interaction, peer discussion in a group, small group, big group. Okay, an exchange of opinion, views, arguments, conflicts, all those things in the we need to have this element in terms of the kind of activities that we design. Keep in mind about the online socialization, or we call it also a social presence. Okay. Another one is the information exchange. How information would occurs in our course. Knowledge construction is very important, because we want to move away from the mindset of giving content as much as we can. We want to starve the content to our students. I think we have to move away from that kind of mindset. Rather, we need to design our course, along the kind of task-based or activity-based. And these activities are purposefully designed to align with the learning outcome, and then to allow the students to do the activities, and along the way they will construct their own knowledge and create their own meaning. That's what the kind of constructivist or social constructivist approach, from my understanding. Okay, so that's basically when it comes to design. Just very briefly. Now, the second one is communication. We have to communicate and connect with our students. Connecting to the students is very vital. Okay, communicate your expectation. Tell the student exactly, this is what I would expect from you. Tell them in terms of the netiquette, the internet etiquette. Tell them how they would behave, the ground rules, tell them, how they should respond. All these are actually, we need to communicate the expectation very clearly and explicitly. Example, you can see I write a long text here in the beginning because I want to make it very clear. And usually I will make a short video also, apart from this long text. At the very beginning of the course, I welcome the students, welcome, hello everyone. Let me wish you a warm welcome to the course. Okay. It is always my intention to explore student-centered learning approach to inculcate. So the why behind this, because they are going to be very busy doing all sort of things in my course. So I want them to appreciate, to understand and appreciate why we are doing this. Otherwise, they will start to complain. Wow, why Prof. Karen is doing so much? Whereas another lecturer not doing much. His course is always make us very busy. So we need to, explain to them, make it very clear our expectation, and maybe we also ask them what's their expectation. So that's kind of a mutual understanding is happening there. Okay, so that's what I mean by communicating our expectation clearly to the students, so that there is no issues arise later because they don't understand why we are doing this, why we are doing that, and so on. Now, the next one, the third one, is establish your virtual presence. When there's a kind of the framework of online learning, something called community of inquiry. So there are three main elements there: teaching presence, social presence. So this is one of the thing that we need to consider in terms of the teaching presence. We need to establish our virtual presence. The student need to feel that we are there, although we are not there physically, but we are there in many forms. When we do synchronous, like what we are doing now, of course, they can see us, they can see the instructor or the teacher, so they can feel our presence there physically or virtually. But we can also have the asynchronous presence. So what I mean by that, like this one form of this actually my interaction with the students, and we are always find time asynchronously even to have the interaction with them, to respond to their questions. Although we don't have to do it every day or every hour, but we want to ensure that the students feel that we are there and we spend the time, we are caring, we are paying attention, not just forget about the course once you have get it running. So that's the virtual presence is very important, and it can make great difference in terms of how students engage with our course. The next one is, and this perhaps one of the most critical part when we design our online course, pay attention to learner engagement and motivation. Again, I'm not the expert on this one. My colleague, Professor Rosna, is actually Rosna Hashim, Professor Rosna Hashim from UUM. I think she's in the session today. Prof. Rosna, this is your area. Pay attention to learner engagement and motivation. I cannot emphasize enough on this one. So in terms of how do we do this, this is where the something called online community of inquiry, which all online educators should know, should read, should practice. Basically, this simply means a group of individuals who collaboratively engage in purposeful critical discourse and intellectual discourse and reflection to construct personal meaning and confirm mutual understanding. So there are three main elements there: the social presence, the teaching presence, and the cognitive presence. If we pay attention to these three elements and put it in part of the design of the learning activities, content, everything, then we should have a good online course, meaningful to the students. Okay. If you want to learn more about this, the course Engaging Online Learners, which I'm giving away to you, and the link you can find at the end, feel free to explore further in that course. Okay. Now, when we talk about student engagement, what's the meaning of student engagement? Basically, we want to engage them cognitively, which is very important. We want them to put their thinking about, the subject matter. But how do we do that? How do we get the students to engage cognitively, engage socially, engage emotionally in terms of the affective domain in the taxonomy, and engage something called behavioral engagement also. So there are different kind of engagement. I read this book, Student Engagement Techniques, very good book. A lot more we can learn about student engagement. I'm still learning myself. But basically, the model of student engagement is something called double helix model here. There are two intertwined elements. We cannot separate this. Active learning, motivation. We must have these two elements when designing our online course. Whatever instructional design model we adopt, these two elements must be there. Okay. So Eric Jensen, a prominent educational psychologist, he said there is no such thing as unmotivated students. There are, however, students in unmotivated states. What does it mean? It simply means, to my understanding, motivation is a state. Just like a light switch, you can switch it on, turn it off. So it's a state, on and off. So therefore, if motivation is a state, we as a learning designer or course designer can design the course in such a way that we can turn on the switch of the motivation. That's from the metaphor that I can use here. Okay. So motivation, cannot emphasize enough the importance of it. It's a prerequisite for engagement, whatever kind of engagement that we want to have, cognitive and so on. And engagement is a prerequisite for learning, because learning by its nature is messy. So if learning happens, it will lead to change of behavior, change of performance. Learning happens when students or learners connecting the dots and making sense of the dot to a certain shape, which is basically the outcome that we have set out for the course. So in a nutshell, because I'm not going to elaborate and deliberate on this, these are the elements when we want to design remember that the intertwined double helix model just now, motivation, which I have briefly mentioned, and the second one is the elements of active learning. What are they? It must be engaging, experiential. Well, remember, adult learners come with their own experience. They want to see something relevant in their life or in their workplace, something that they can apply. So that kind of experiential learning is very important. It must be immersive. Once they go into your course, they get engrossed. They want to leave the course. Immersive, cognitively challenging, authentic learning experience, especially for adult learners. They want something practical, something real. But adults also sometimes they are kids at heart. So let them play, have some fun, games, but not too much. Self-regulated, self-directed, and collaborative. These are the elements. I'm just putting it here, but I don't have really time to. Each one of these actually can be like 1 hour deliberation. Next, create a supportive online course community. Remember, whether face-to-face or online, we need to create a sense of community, a sense of belonging, a sense of camaraderie. So online is even more critical to have this sense of community. So how do we do that? This is where the creativity of the course designer is the creativity of the course designer is very important. This can be a subject by itself. How do we create our social presence, and at the same time we can create that sense of community among students? I think if properly done and properly designed, we can have even more close community online than the face-to-face. So for example, here you can see on the screen here, one of the thing when the students have completed the activity, for example, those who have done the best, shown the best performance or give the best response, I'll give them instant gratification. But how do we do the instant gratification online? So this is one example. I do a nice short, like a 10-second or less video. But of course, you have to learn what are the tools you can use, right? So this is actually a video. So, but this is only a screenshot. So I put it on the course. So this the name of the student, IMAM PUTRA, student of the week. You know, student of the day, student of the month. So give him a congratulation for being the most active student, for keep up the good work. So these are kind of motivation that we want to give the students, or kind of instant gratification. This can actually very, very good way to, and you can see the response of the students. Long actually thread of conversation there. So this actually give that kind of sense of camaraderie to the students. Another example here, the student here. So, okay, Brian Lim, student of the month. Congratulations and kudos, blah 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 blah. And then you can see the response of their peers, friends. So I find from the feedback of the students, they love this. They love this because they said the lecturer pay attention to their effort. So we praise the effort. You know, when we learn about growth mindset, we don't praise the student, we praise the effort. So growth mindset versus fixed mindset. So there's a difference there. Okay, praise the effort, not praise the student, but praise the effort. So the next one, how much I have? Yeah, right. Chunk the lesson. I mentioned this many times. Use the concept of micro learning because we want to address the issue of short attention span, which is very short nowadays for the millennial generation. Average attention of adult learners is actually 8 seconds or 9 seconds, according to one research by Microsoft Canada. So break the content so that we can make it very manageable, very digestible for the students. That's even in because I'm food technologist, so I'm using the example of food here. You can find the cookies now very small. You can just put in your mouth and you can swallow. Don't swallow directly, just chew a little bit. Okay, but basically the idea is it makes sense to break down content into a small, manageable segment. So a video, for example, like 3 to 5 minutes video. Even if you give them the handout, maybe 2 or 3 pages, then you have another series of handout as well. Okay. Yeah, I'm sure by now a lot of people understand what is synchronous and asynchronous learning activities. Depending who your students are and what kind of connectivity they have, high bandwidth, low bandwidth, we might want to have more asynchronous, less synchronous. But we try to kind of have some elements of this synchronous and asynchronous learning activities. And this is how we design into the course. The next one, design learning activities for small group and individual. Have a mix. You know, some activities for small group. Some activities for small group, some for individual. So you have tried to have the right balance of this in the course. Let me show you some example. When we design the learning activity, whether individually or in group, you know, in 1 hour session, if we do synchronous session, in that 1 hour session, we might want to have like 70% of the time is task-based series of activities that the students can do. Then another 20% of the time where we do the closure. So that's where the teaching comes in. We can do the closure, we can summarize, we can correct the misconception, everything. And the 10% is when the students are given the time to do the reflection, similar to the 2 minutes paper in the conventional way. And This example of what I have in my course. This is example of individual learning activity. So you must tell the students how long it will take to watch this video, then what they need to do clearly, and then all the students would respond in the box down there. Depending on the platform or learning management system you use, but you will have this kind of features. So for example, I give them this actually watching a video and do something on the video. This is another activity, individual activity using Mentimeter, now very famous. And they can see what they have to do, everything. Another example of individual activity, tell them exactly how long this will take roughly. Okay. And this is example of group activities. Okay. Example of group activities. So it takes duration estimated 10 minutes, what they need to do. And below there, they can respond to that activity. So when we do this in group, if we use platform like Open Learning or even Moodle, you can group the students into like a breakout room or separate group. So this is how it looks like. The group form, we form a group for them or they form their own group. So that's how we can give the name of the group. Then when we, of course, the instructor or the facilitator is the member of all the groups, so that we can play the role as a police. Then this where the students respond in the group and they have discussion. They can have discussion. The students, their members can respond to each of this one. So if we really design this well, there can be a very vibrant discussion in the group. So that's where the engagement, the cognitive engagement, the soft skill like communication, teamwork, everything can be embedded into this kind of activities. The next few slides, prepare discussion posts that invite responses, questions, discussion, reflection. So many things you can do here. I forgot to share. I will show you later. There's one book which I've shared in the previous session. It's called I'll show you the book. But this book, you can find 100 plus online activities that you can choose as part of your course design. So you will not be running out of ideas. So when we design it, for example, this is only one of the example. To the end, maybe you can ask the student to do a reflection. So we can use now also very popular, becoming very popular now, a Flipgrid as one of the tools. But there are so many other tools out there that we can use to engage the students in the different activities, discussion, reflection, and so on. And I think a good online course also would design activities that will take students to the higher level of Bloom taxonomy. Many things we can do here. We can design some learning activities for cognitive engagement here, in terms of cognitive engagement. But in the nutshell, when we design the learning activities for cognitive engagement, basically we want to engage, get the students to interact and take action. So you can see that design appropriate learning activities that would engage students at various levels of cognitive domain of Bloom taxonomy. Design appropriate learning activities that will encourage students to interact with their peers. So that's where the social interaction will come in. And design appropriate learning activities that would allow the students to do and create tangible output. Create, which is basically the pinnacle of the Bloom taxonomy in this form. Right. What other examples of activities that would engage students cognitively, especially at the higher level in Bloom taxonomy C3, C4, and above? Debate. How do you debate online? How do you do debate online? Well, in this case, I use actually Google Doc here. But I don't have time to really show it, but we can actually use Google Doc and some other ways to let students to debate. You can divide them into groups and assign this group. Let's say group 1 to 3, you will take the pros. Group 4, 5, 6 will take the cons. So give them 15 minutes or 30 minutes, whatever, to discuss with the points, and then each group will share their point on Google Doc or on Mentimeter, whatever tool that you choose to use. TEDx. This is actually free. You go to TEDx, you can pick any video, and you can see here, get the student to watch, and then you can design some question to get them to think. So there's the cognitive engagement here, and you want to get them to go deeper, dig deeper. So you will ask them the open-ended question now, and then after that we have discussion with the student, discuss, and finally the reflection. So this is very easy to design using TEDx. Have a look if you have not seen this one. Give it a try. I like it very much. And what about, I'm going to talk about scenario-based learning next week. This is one big topic. And when I discovered about scenario-based learning, I thought, wow, this is great. You know, well, we can design the scenario, and that scenario actually will really test the students on the higher level of cognitive or Bloom taxonomy, you know. Inshallah, next week I will talk about scenario-based learning. If you are interested, please join, and I will show you examples of actual scenario-based learning and how we design this using some application or tools. So, for example, here it gives the scenario here, and then if the student choose this one, then that's the response. If the student choose this one, it will take them to a different kind of path. So this is where the branching scenario comes in. You know, you take this, you go this path. You take this option, you go this path. Very interesting. The student have to really apply the deep understanding of the subject in order to be able to do the scenario-based learning successfully. Finally, why this guy is holding his head? Because if you're not careful, and I'm guilty also of this, we have the tendency to give too much, to the extent that the students would have a cognitive overload. And I have been kind of, I get comments from the students, you know, sometimes I give too much. So I think I need to learn also how to be prudent in this aspect, so that the student will not get overloaded, you know, in terms of cognitive part. Finally, my message here, I always use this slide. Don't focus too much on covering the syllabus. Don't focus too much on giving content, but design, you know, the so-called from the activity-based or task-based approach, so that you can empower the students to uncover the content rather than we cover the content for them. Flip thinking in that sense, yeah. So finally, stay safe, everyone. Stay cool, stay safe, stay put, and again, if you've been following my webinar, you expect, you know what to expect. Stay hungry, stay foolish, and from me, stay strong. So thank you very much, Samsul. Thank you very much, Cisco, for having me. Thank you everyone for staying on and listen to my rambling. Thank you.